Hey, what's up, guys? Do a little bit of an audio check. Let me know if you can hear me, and we'll get started. As you guys know, this is the first, I guess, podcast / type of live stream that we have a guest. And today we have Scott from Rosco's Reef. You guys know he's a good buddy of mine. And we talk pretty much, I guess, every day, I would say.
Pretty much every day.
And yeah, we're going to do an audio check. We're good. Salty Reef. Good here? Okay, cool. All right, so the point of these live streams, we're going to test them out and see how they do. We're going to bring on a guest every week and talk shit. No, I don't know. We're just going to talk back and forth and go over what people are going through, what's going on with their tanks, and then, you know, kind of see where it goes from there. There's not really a set question and answer kind of portion. It's just kind of bullshit and see how it turns out. So if you like that stuff, hit the thumbs up and stick around. So go ahead, Scott, introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your channel, and then we'll get into it.
Well, my name is Scott from Rosco's Reef, of course. Everybody knows this. I'm usually in the chat with Andrea, but now I'm on this side of it, so I got to try and ignore the chat a little bit. My channel, even though there's been not so much activity lately, or in a while, hopefully in the near future it will go back, especially that Travis busts my chops about it pretty much every day. It's all saltwater reef coral, and I don't know, you know, pretty much same kind of model as yours. So
yeah, I just had to go ahead and switch my mic over so there wasn't any echo. Am I good on this now?
No, you're good. I'm not hearing anything.
Good. Okay, good. Yeah, there was an echo in the background. I wanted to fix that before we got started. But yeah, so Scott actually has a YouTube channel that he put out a ton of content on. And then, as you guys know, sometimes life gets in the way.
Yeah.
And things happen. And that's basically what happened to him. So we're going to kind of talk about his journey and kind of where he started reef tanks, kind of how he progressed. And, everybody knows that things happen. People get out of the hobby. I know that I've been through different things and caused me to take down tanks and moving from location to location. As you guys know, when you're younger, moving from apartments to apartments and stuff, you lose your reef tanks and all sorts of stuff, financial and all that stuff pops up. But so let's go ahead and talk about Scott. So when did you start the hobby? When did you actually get into it?
I started being involved with fish probably, we're going back 7-8 years ago. And like you, started with the freshwater side of it. But, after a while of being in freshwater, I'm like a technical guy. So I like things to be at least a little hard. And after a while of freshwater,
sorry, I had to do it. I had to do it. You can't be saying that crap around me, man. You know this.
I will lead you into a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's what she said. Okay, moving on.
So after a while I had a 55-gallon all acrylic tank that I loved and looked like an ice cube on top of a 6-foot-long stand that I built myself because I knew that I would eventually go into a bigger tank.
And this was freshwater?
Yeah, it was freshwater.
Okay.
It was actually an old saltwater tank that I made into freshwater. I rehabbed the tank and sanded all the acrylic and took all the scratches out. So,
fun. I know people do that. I know I've seen people, or at least talk about it and kind of slightly show the process of sanding out scratches. That does not seem fun at all. I would not want to be messing around.
It's not fun. It's not fun. My arms killed me. It took me the better part of 2 weeks to get that tank all ready to go. And it was a pain. There's a lot of sanding involved and a lot of waxing, basically, with different grit wax. So
now there is a point where you can't sand it anymore, right? If the scratch is too deep.
Yeah, well, it depends on the thickness of the acrylic, because after a while, you're taking off minute layers of acrylic every time you're trying to rehab it.
Yeah.
And after a while, it's just not worth it because the tank's going to start bowing out on you. That tank bowed on me, and it made me nervous at times, but it held in there. So
that's the only reason why I haven't gone with acrylic was because of the bowing. I don't like. I've seen it, even the bigger tanks, even the ones that are like an inch and a half thick worth of acrylic, they still bow. And I mean, obviously glass bows to a certain extent, but it just seems more apparent on acrylic. So I kind of avoid that at all costs. I mean, I'm not a big acrylic guy. I've had one acrylic tank and that was at freshwater from a while ago. And that was pretty much it. I just kind of moved away from it at that point.
Well, I liked acrylic because the front corners were rounded and it made it actually look like an ice cube set on top of the stand. The thing that drove me crazy is because I go deep whenever I go into something, I go deep into it. So I'll do a lot of research on it, on the topic, just so I know that I'm doing it right. And there's a thing called crazing where whatever seams there are where they join and glue and weld the acrylic together, you'll see minute scratches and cracks in it. And that's a bad sign because, especially with this tank, because it wasn't that thick of acrylic. After a while, the pressure from the water could blow out that seam. So I was always worried about coming home to a mess. So then after that tank started going on autopilot and I wasn't touching it I wasn't even testing the tank anymore. I could see that the tank was doing fine. There wasn't anything in it but fish and just everybody's got those little fake rocks with the fake coral on it. So even at that time, I was liking the way the tank looked with little coral pieces in it. And I was that guy who would walk into a fish store and go to the freshwater side and not want to look at the saltwater side because I knew that I couldn't touch that at that point. Because to me, saltwater was like the holy
too
grail.
Intimidating. Yeah. No, I remember going through that phase too. Because I did freshwater for years and years and years and years, and Oscars were the big thing for me. I always liked having the big fish, and getting a tank big enough was usually the issue. The fish would outgrow the tank too quickly. Right. But yeah, so that when I went to the fish store, that was one of the things that was intimidating. I would go in and see the saltwater and be like, yeah, I don't know anything about that. And it was even the thought of starting saltwater was intimidating. I was like, I don't know if I say like one more time, I'm gonna cut my fucking wrist. I sound like a fucking liberal. Like. Oh my god! Everybody feels like in when they have nothing to say or they have a hard time.
Yeah, well, mine is usually
Yeah, I try. Mine used to be and then and then. So anyway, going off the rails on that.
That's
But
right.
going into the fish section and then seeing the salt water was always intimidating. It was for years and years and years. And then finally, I don't know what happened. I woke up one day and I almost said like again. I just said, I'm going to start something. I'm going to try it. I'm really going to do salt water. So let me give it a shot. So I went down to the local fish store and bought like a 25-gallon tank with a bunch of hang-on stuff and didn't know really anything, but I would say maybe 2 hours worth of research, and then that's where it started. But yeah, so
you did less research than
I did a lot less than you, yeah, and that's why I had a lot of problems on the way. But go on.
Yeah. So what I would do is I wasn't so much intimidated by the idea of it because I wanted it because all the colorful fish was on that side of the store. My thing was I was going to go fowler. I was just going to do fish only with live rock.
Fish only live rock, yeah. It seems to be pretty common for most people starting out. That's what I did.
Yeah.
I did fresh, yeah.
And I swore I'm not going coral. I'm not even going into that animal. So that started a 6-month research. I would just eat, sleep, and dream saltwater. There were certain channels that I would pick from, and the only channels that I would tend to look at, this is before we even knew each other, the only channels that I would look at were people who were recognized in the hobby as being like the science end of it, like the Sanjay and the Paletta and Joey Aiulo and all those guys. So
it's not so much the entertainers, but more of the science.
Yeah, I wasn't into personalities. Didn't drive my. I was doing this just to find out what's the information, what do they do, what's the basics for starting the tanks. And the curse was those are all guys who like saltwater coral tanks. And from doing the research, I was like, at the end of it, because during this time, I would like buy a piece of equipment. Like my first purchase was a protein skimmer.
You remember what brand it was?
Yeah, it's the same brand that I used even through the 90. It was the SJC.
What do you currently have on your tank?
What I currently have on my tank is, well, the SJC is what was on my tank when I stopped.
Okay, that's what it was in there. Okay, I didn't know that was something else.
I had that tank between the tank that I started, which was the 55, and then the 90 when I purchased it. I upsized when I purchased my equipment. I was, especially with the protein skimmer at that time, you would upscale your protein skimmer because you were looking to take that into your next tank, which is what I did, and I used that. Believe it or not, now there was, at the end of it, there were some times that the pump would give me a hard time kicking on, but 5 years on the same pump and protein skimmer. The only thing I changed out was the collection cup.
That's not too common now, unless you're buying some really higher end stuff like Nios or even some Bubble Maggot stuff to a certain extent can last that long. But most protein skimmers you're not getting 5 years out of them. Not now, anyways.
It was amazing. And also the thing that was good about SJC that I really liked is I called them even before I had a YouTube channel. I called them and the person that answered the phone was the owner of the company. And I was like, wow, okay. And I talked to him about a problem I had with, I think it was the drain line that was coming out of the bottom of the collection cup. And he was like, oh, no problem. I'll take care of that. And 3 days later, I had like 3 drains and all the brand new stuff. So the customer service for SJC was at that time ridiculous. So
it was a smaller company at that point, right?
Well, even up until the last time I spoke to him was when I did the video on the protein skimmer on my channel and raised and modified the collection cup to the bigger one. I called him up and he answered the phone again. And I was like, now this is SJC also does tanks. And I spoke to him and I said, listen, I got a YouTube channel. It's nothing big. It's, at that time, I think I had like 1,800 subs. And I said, I'd like to do a review of the products. How much I saw, the new protein skimmers had the bigger collection cup. And I was like, how much for that bigger collection cup? Because I want to buy it and put it on the one that I have and, show how it looks with the new cup. And he was like, no problem. I'll send it to you. And I was like, well, I don't want you to think that I'm doing, or, that a review, because if I don't like it, I don't like it. And he's like, no, just give me an honest review. He goes, I got no problem with it. It doesn't, you know, for me to send it to you, it doesn't cost me anything. So boom, like 3 days later, I had the bigger collection go.
And now I guess we could talk about reviews. So when you started your channel, how many different companies have you worked with since you started? I know that you did the lighting. You were one of the first people to get that lighting.
Yeah, I did. The Revive I bought in the beginning, before I even started to talk to people. The Revives I bought, but then we had SJC I did one for. I did it for Red Sea, but Red Sea I bought all the stuff, but I did talk to the company about doing the reviews. And then I got headway with Orphic, and Orphic was a whole big bunch of, you know, they had the
they had the issue with that light. They sent you that light.
Yeah, they had the one light. Yeah, they had that one light that they were coming out. It was the Ocean, they were calling it, the Orphic Ocean. And it was a good light. I still have it. So I have
still works, no problem.
I have kind of a collector's item because I have one of the
only one
out with their branding on it.
Yeah, that's true.
And
tell everybody what happened with that. I think it'd be interested. I think everybody would be interested to know.
Well, when I contacted them about doing a video, it was all through emails, because I think they're based in Germany, even though the owner, who was my point of contact at the end, he's all over the world. He goes all over the world. But I said I wanted to do a review on one of their lights, and I wanted the Atlantics, but he said, well, your timing is really good because we're coming out with this new light called the Ocean. And I know that some of the guys from overseas, there was some guys in England that were expressing interest in doing reviews on it, and there were a bunch of channels that were going after him. And I just talked to him. He said, well, I'll send you one. You know, you do the reviews for the United States. And with that started a whole email chain, because Orphic is one of those companies that they'll excuse me, they'll send you the light, and they want the review to just have certain information in it. They don't solicit, they don't say to you, we're not sending this to you unless you give us a positive review. They'll say, we just like people to know this about the light, if you can include that in your review. And I got no problem with that. You want to get across what you want to get across. Okay, no problem. Well, right before the review came out, I contacted them. I said, the review's coming out. I sent it to them just so they knew what was coming out, good, bad, or indifferent. And then I released it, and they said, you know, no problem. Well, the day after that, the owner sends me an email, and what happened with the light was, which they also cleared for me to say, and I think I did a follow-up video on it. Somebody came out with the same design.
PCB board design, right?
The whole thing, the whole internals, not the shell, but the whole internals, and went to another manufacturer with it. So just as they were getting ready to release this unit, they would have had a whole bunch of duplicates underselling them probably on a different company, which never, I don't know whether it's come out with other lights, whether the Chinese black boxes came out with the same kind of internals. But after that, they kind of said, we really, really apologize for this, because I had already come out with a review. So I said, okay, you can make it up to me and just, you know, give me the Atlantic. And they did. They sent me two of them, as a matter of fact. And that light was the only the real high-end light that I got. You know, that was, you know.
The Orphic one was.
Yeah, the Orphic Atlantics, they I think they retail between $600 to $800 a piece. You know,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've seen them before. I've even seen their bigger ones that even cost even more than that.
Well, you saw them on my tank too, because you would hear when we closed it down.
Yeah, when you closed it down, that was a pain. I guess tell everybody what you got going in there right now. I know that you I know it's down, but I mean, does it still have water in it? I've been when I listen. Well, here's the thing. You got to understand what happened when we set that day aside and we took the tank down. Even though I smile and I joke around, I was broken that day. Because yeah, well, I can imagine, man. You tore the whole thing down. Well, it also took away the channel away from you too. That's the other thing, is it took that whole
Yeah,
Away
it
from
took
your
an
center.
outlet, and I had geared myself up for that. But I had figured if I wanted to run the channel, I still could have by just doing like local stuff,
Mm.
and doing like the shows and still doing it that way. But my thing is, and I know you share the same kind of belief. I'm not going to listen to anybody if they don't show me what it is. Unless they have that tank behind them, showing them flourishing corals and fish. I can't believe you on what you say.
Well, that's the problem that we have with our community is, I mean, anybody can make a YouTube channel. Anybody can create anything. I mean, you can do whatever you want. But there are it's not as many as there were a couple years ago, but there's still a lot of people who create channels about reefing and do all these videos. I wouldn't say not top 10, but just in general videos, trying to give out this information, but they have nothing to. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
I mean, they got a 20-gallon tank with a couple zoas in it, and you can't be giving advice on Acropora. Just like you said, I mean, why would I listen to you if it's not showing, if you're not showing that it's successful? But
exactly. And that's one of the reasons why I ran a totally mixed tank. Looking at your tank, don't get me wrong, your tank is gorgeous.
It was.
But
but it was.
Yeah, because you own it, you think it's not.
Oh man, it was
a tank. It's a gorgeous tank. But I ran total mixed reef because I wanted to be able to talk about each different coral.
Everything, yeah. I will say that's one of the downsides I have here is I only have a few LPS. I have a couple. I have a hammer, I have a couple of hammers, a frog spawn, a torch, and then I have that Lobo. But that's it. So I mean, I don't really talk about LPS too much. I don't really talk about soft corals.
Yeah, but at one point you were running a kind of a mixed reef with the 125.
With the 125, yeah, I had everything in that tank. But there wasn't a lot of acros in that. I had a lot of easier SPS. But then again, that was one of my first SPS tanks. So yeah, I mean, I can see why you want to have a mixed reef so you can talk about everything. But I don't know. I don't really talk about too much of the coral, but
at what time that mixed reef was the bane of my existence because of the amount of stuff that goes on in a mixed reef. You never know what's going to release a toxin into the water, especially when you have alleys and stuff like that.
Well, that's why I don't like mixed reefs, is because you can't make everything happy. That's in the saltwater hobby. A mixed reef is the hardest tank to have. I mean, I have a mix to a certain extent. Yes, I have zoas and a couple LPS there, but a true mix is like 50% acro or SPS, and then you break down 25% LPS, 25% soft corals. That's considered more of a mixed reef, and it's a lot harder to keep a tank like that happy because you can't put a bunch of flow in there like the SPS want, because they want a lot of flow and make them happy. If you do that, you're gonna close up your LPS and piss off your soft corals to a certain extent. And vice versa, you can't have a little bit of flow because you're not going to have the good, polyp extension on the Acropora. So, keeping a mixed reef happy is a huge pain in the ass.
Yeah, it would drive me crazy because I could never get I would look at your corals, and I would be like, why can't I get the polyp extension that he has? But then again, I'm running mixed, and part of the thing about putting new corals in my tank, especially if I'm running LPS, especially with not so much with torches, because a guy told me a long time ago, and it kind of held out for it, unless you get a real finicky one. Torches could, out of the LPS world, torches are the ones that could take a lot of flow more than the hammers and the frog spawn. But my frog spawn would get pissed, so I was always trying to come up with new ways of blocking flow from that coral, and it drove me nuts at times. And then you got the other corals that grow really quick, the mushrooms and the zoas, and they're growing to the point where they're starting to take over positions.
And then they get over by your SPS and start growing up over your SPS.
Yeah.
That's what I have going on now. At the bottom, I have zoas growing completely over Acropora, and luckily, those Acropora are not being killed by them. But unfortunately, a couple of them have already been wiped out STN because of the soft corals growing over them. I will say for the new build, there won't be any soft corals and there won't be any LPS in either of my tanks, just because it's not really my style. It messes with how corals grow. You can't. The controllability of a soft coral is very slim. I mean, once they start growing, you can. I mean, when I took out all the pallies out of that middle left rock structure, I used the Dremel, but I Dremeled them off the rock. I mean, who the heck wants to do that?
No. So I wouldn't mess with a pally rock.
Well, I did because I had no choice. There were
I know.
So many of them on there, but I just I don't want to do that again.
I had a one rock on the left-hand side of my tank, and it was a beautiful cave rock. It had the perfect shape for a cave. And I made the mistake of putting these big, huge purple blue mushrooms on it. And they grew over the whole entire rock to the point where I had no room for other coral. I had zoas on it, but it killed the zoas. And I'm like, I can't put anything here. It was the reason why I started gluing coral to the return tower that everybody was so crazy about.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't put anything over that rock or on the rock.
Because it would wipe them out.
Yeah, it drives me crazy. So I wound up having, the only way I got rid of that, I wound up selling the whole rock, breaking it off.
Well, that's kind of brings me to a point that when I try to build a reef tank, well, at least my next one, you kind of have to look back and think, how am I going to set this up so I can have it run forever? And when you really think about it, there is no such thing as forever when it comes to any tank, because something's always going to outcompete. As I have going on right now, with some STN, the coral gets shaded STNs, and then it keeps growing, yada yada yada, it keeps going. But the same thing is for a soft coral and LPS tank. Eventually, you're just going to run out of room. There's no way to control it, and that's kind of, it sucks, because when I want to build my next tank, I really want it to be like the forever. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, in about 2 years, I'm going to have to go in there and rip out entire colonies like I am now. And there's really no way to avoid it. So I think the damage would be lessened if I just went straight SPS opposed to mixed reef with, those.
Yeah, well, a straight up SPS tank, you're still going to have the same problems that everybody has, that it starts to grow, and the deal. But you got to remember also that even in nature, reefs are always changing. There's fighting for space, and what badass coral is going to start to take over different areas that other corals are in. Same thing happens in your tank, only you got less room to do it in, so some of the changes are forced on you.
Yeah, kind of like what we got going on now. I mean, forced to take out all that coral and essentially, start over, which is, I will admit, is a little, I would say it's heartbreaking, but it's kind of like I took, 10 steps back, and now I'm kind of looking at the tank like, wow, it's freaking, I'm waiting for these. I mean, they're growing. Everything's encrusted onto the rock. It's growing. It looks fine. But it's just that these huge, massive open spaces that weren't there, just 4 months ago. And I try to think of how I'm going to not let that happen again. And that's kind of where, bouncing that idea off. But go ahead.
The way I looked at it, not to get really upset by it, because if I thought about it too much, I would get really upset by it. And then, pop gray hairs where I didn't want gray hairs to be grown coming in would come out. But I looked at it this way. It gave me a chance to restart different areas of my tank. And the most fun that I have is building a system, doing the Rockscape, seeing what it's going to turn out to be, planning on where I'm going to put my coral and putting it in. Well, if I had to take out and redesign a whole section, because you have to remember too is all my Rockscape in that tank was not glued together. It was
That's right.
Glued. So if I bumped it and knocked like a whole section over, usually led to a 4-hour rebuild of Rockscape. I
don't know how you could do that. I don't know how you could do that.
So,
well, I mean, do you plan on, for your next build, you plan on gluing it and attaching things together, so that's not a problem? Because I would chop that up as a lesson learned. I will admit, my first tank, I just let the rock sit on itself, and went from there. And when stuff fell over, it did. But there was points where you'd have a whole colony growing, and then a rock above it would fall and crush the whole colony. Exactly. And then I just chopped that up to lessons learned. I'm not going to do that again. So,
I call that selective Rockscape fragging.
I call that, hopefully it doesn't hit the front glass.
Yeah. Well,
I'm sure somebody had that happen.
Oh, absolutely. The whole front pane of glass blows out of your tank. Not a good thing. But then also the infamous Hollywood Stunner, just to go back to gluing stuff onto my tower, I glued a piece of Hollywood Stunner. And that was the one thing that I really enjoyed about having the channel, is that you had a lot of people you knew. So when I had shortages of coral, not shortages of coral, when I had something that grew too big and I needed to cut it up and frag it out, I always had places for them to go. And I think I gave you pieces, and I gave a few other people pieces, and found out what a true assassin that coral was.
Oh, the Hollywood Stunner.
Yeah.
You couldn't pay me to put one of those back in my tank. I have one on a one of those 3-inch discs, a grow out disc, which I'm growing out and then I'll sell it because people still like that stuff. But I would not. No way. I would never put that in next to an SPS. That's insane.
Yeah, the tentacles that came out of that thing at night was ridiculous.
Yeah, 3 or 4 inches long, if not longer than that. Yeah, depending on the colony, how mature it is.
Yeah, exactly.
That
quick growers, and they look really great, especially under blue light. But no, they kill everything.
Yeah, I would not. Yeah, I'm not a Hollywood Stunner kind of guy. Yeah, I mean, my experience, I've had a Hollywood Stunner, and then I've had some other chalices that have really, really, really long sweeper tentacles, and that was something that I figured out when I was taking down the middle right rock structure. I mentioned this before. I actually pulled out that LPS, which is an Enchilada. I believe that's what it is. I still got to frag it up, but that thing, sweeper tentacles, that was the only reason why my pink lemonade wouldn't open up for all those months, was because it was getting slammed by the sweeper tentacles. I didn't realize it because that coral was tucked into a little nook and cranny there, but it must have been reaching at least 4 or 5 inches and smacking the bottom of that colony every single night. So, yeah, I mean,
I remember.
I take these lessons and I just chop them up as I learn from it. Not going to make that mistake again. And that's something that people see the reef tank and they're like, "Wow, I mean, you're doing a great job, yada yada yada." But to realize that it's all lessons learned, even active right now. I mean, I look at the tank and I see things that are going on. I have certain soft corals growing where they shouldn't be, and certain acros where I don't like them to be, and I just chop it up as, well, I know for my next build, I'm not going to put this coral next to this coral. I'm not going to put one on this part of the rock structure because this is how it grows. So, yeah, I mean, regardless of how many tanks you've had and how much experience you have, everything is teaching you for your next one, so you can keep going.
Yeah, and I had a big notebook. I still have it with all my notes in it that I've over the different lessons that I learned, because my biggest thing, and especially in the lead up to building the first system, I was constantly looking at videos and learning stuff and making notes and buying lights and yada, yada, yada. But I didn't want to get it to a point. I never wanted to be that guy who would go on a live stream and ask the same question like over and over and over again. Not that, there's anything wrong with that, but I wanted to be the guy that if I needed help, I'd ask it. And usually I would go to the frag swaps and talk to people. I always liked one-on-one better. But I would learn my lesson and then go on. I would never ask. Like, you and I both know a certain individual that asks 50 million people the same question over and over again.
We're not calling you out because you might be in chat.
Yeah, exactly.
We know who you are. That's funny.
But not that he doesn't have great stories and is a great, is always good for a callback. But, I wanted to be able to solve my own problems. Everybody in this hobby is going to need people to help them. I don't care who you are. Even
admitting the help, admitting it is another.
That's it. As long as a big ego and this hobby do not get along, because if you think you know everything, you don't. Go move along. Your tank's going to crash. I'm sorry, plain English. You can't think you know everything in this hobby, because you never will. There's new technology coming out.
There's too much. Well, there's too many things. I mean, I right now, like I said today on the phone, I mean, I got Dino in my WYSIWYG tank, and that out of all the tanks, that's the only one that has it, and it's only in that tank. So, I mean, I'm learning things all the time. I mean, I'm learning how to control things and trying to figure out. Obviously, I'm trying out this new bacteria and stuff to see, trying to get the system back to where it was, and actually, I'm getting some pretty positive insight in how the tank is doing. But anyway, the point is that I mean, I have issues every single day. I don't talk about them all the time because I can't make content like that every day with the business going on. I will admit, with the business going on and the way things are, I can't create as much content as I want. But trust me, I'm still going through the ups and downs that everybody else is going through. I might not talk about them all the time because, well, I can't make content every single day. But I mean, I have no problem admitting, hey, I'm trying some new stuff and I'm running into a little bit of Dino, and that's just kind of part of the process. I mean, we're going to see how it turns out.
You have to go through that process. There's no other way to learn.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with trying something new as long as there's research backed up before I start. And I think I lost you. Are you frozen? Can you hear me now? Scotty boy. Scott's face. He looks high right now. Frozen. Wait for him to come back. So, while we're waiting, does anybody got any questions? Let's see what we got going on here. Should probably text him like, "Yo, bro, your face looks looks a little smushed." Let me get a hold of him real quick. Scotty boys, frozen. Scott, you are not 8, are frozen. Get back to me, bro. Oh, he's gone. He'll be back. Yeah. So, if you guys like this type of content, give the live stream a thumbs up. If not, you can if you want, but we're kind of just testing to see how this goes and kind of go back and forth. We definitely want to stay reef related topics, but it's sometimes we get off onto other things, but that's okay. And we're just gonna wait for Scotty Boy to come back. Fishing Facts, have you dosed the Eco Balancing? Yeah, I started it. I'm on my second week. 1/3 the recommended dose, and just kind of check it out and see how it goes. I did start dosing some Chaeto, some phosphorus for the Chaeto. I mentioned that in the video before, and the Chaeto's coming back really green right now. It's really, really looking good. Now that I'm dosing some beneficial bacteria, of course, that's going to help process the nutrients a little bit better, and that's why I got a dip in nutrients, and that's why the dino popped out one of my tanks. But it's just part of the process. It's going to take time. Once the system balances, it'll go back to normal, so I'm not really worried about it too much. I'm just waiting for Scott to get back here and see what he's saying. Did he text me? Looking for the problem. Okay, here we go. Let me get him back in here. Had to stream there. You back?
Sorry about that. Can you hear me
That's
fine?
cool. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, I don't know what we were talking about.
We were talking about, not knowing everything about anything.
Yeah, well, that's just kind of how it is. I mean, that's with any hobby, really. I mean, I'm trying new things, and I mean, shit. I mean, have you ever done something and learned so much about it that you get so bored with it you don't want to do it anymore?
Yeah, fresh water.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, to a certain extent, yeah. I mean, that hobby, even just in general, and that's one thing about saltwater is you never know everything, so it never gets boring. I think the only thing that really makes people leave the hobby is because they made a mistake, and that they can't live with the repercussions of that mistake.
Yeah. The crash.
I think the crash, the problems. I think people are so hyped. I remember back when I first started, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna grab this Nemo fish because it's the coolest damn thing in the world." Mm-hmm. And yeah, I just come get this rock at the same time. I'm gonna start my whole tank at the same time, and then the fish died.
Yeah.
And then I felt like crap, and I'm like, "Well, I'll just go buy another fish." So and then you kind of realize that maybe that isn't the greatest way to go about it. But that I still remember that feeling when I first started. I was so excited. It's kind of like when you get your first when you get some puss for the first time, you're like, oh, "That's great." It's like this is super awesome. By the way, I lost my virginity in a tent in the middle of the woods when I was 18 years old. Oh man,
it's a memorable moment.
It's memorable, yeah. It wasn't with my cousin Joey, but it was next to him in the other tent. Long story, man. I don't want to go off on that, but yeah. So yeah. But anyway, see, that's how we're going right off the
rail. Next thing you know, you'll be like, okay, moving down.
But moving down, yeah. So I mean, we can keep these conversations about reef tanks, or we move on to other stuff. I don't really care. But I guess the point is that I still remember exactly what it felt like to start the hobby and how exciting it was. And that's what I look for. Now, granted, now I don't have that. I don't have that feeling because it's a freaking job at this point, even though I wish that it wasn't. But then there's so many perks to it being a job that I don't foresee myself ever doing anything else ever again. Mm-hmm. But I will admit, I mean, I've done a lot of stuff for work, and a lot of things are stressful. Running a coral business and then is stressful enough, but having to keep up the appearance and how you are on YouTube as well just adds a whole another layer of pain in the ass to keep in the freaking reef tank. because this is the thing. Any joker out here, even the ones lurking right now, are just trying to screen snippet or come up with something to talk shit. No matter what you do, you're going to be judged for everything you do.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I find that, and this just being the YouTuber, that everything that you do is going to get nitpicked, no matter what it is, because that's human nature. We're all about, oh, this guy, well, looks like he only put one finger in his ass when he should have put two. I mean, there's always something that someone's going to bitch about and to nitpick about. So. And when it comes to this hobby, you make enemies pretty quickly. You either make enemies because you're successful, or you say something and people get offended by it. I do both. I mean, it's fine. I don't care. So those people were always looking for something that you did wrong. So that's what makes it so difficult to run a YouTube channel and run the business associated with it. It's because there's always something you gotta be perfect, because every little thing someone's gonna come after you on it. And you know that perfectly well because of running the channel yourself.
Well, look at it this way too: is you're running a hobby, and I was looking at Reef and Chill's comment about balancing time with family.
I'm reading his other comment. Says losing virginity with cousins should never be in the same sentence as paragraph.
Well, I'm going back a little ways.
Okay, yeah, it was next to my cousin in a different tent. Let's clarify this right here. It wasn't with him or anywhere around his penis. It was not even near him. So let's just get that out of the way.
Sorry, Fishy, about the freshwater comment.
Are you offended? Yeah. Let's get me the offended bell. We can start ringing the offended bell.
Start ringing the offended bell and putting quarters in the jug. But with you're running a YouTube channel. You're a hobbyist, and it's your business. So that right there are three things. I know for a fact that if you do something you love as a business, you'll never look at it with the same love as you had for it.
Yeah.
Because you just do it so much. Me having a hobby that is kind of a business with having a channel, and especially when you first get into, like, everybody who does a YouTube channel, I mean, I don't know how it was for anybody who, out there, but I know the majority of it starts off, usually, I just want to put my videos on YouTube because I'm documenting how the tank looks and I want to be able to look back, kind of deal. And then you slowly get to where you get a following and people start asking you questions, and you're like, okay, well, people seem to think that I have something good to say or like the way I say it, so I'm just going to do more videos.
And they request certain topics that you go ahead and that's kind of where it starts. Yeah.
You start listening. That's the way you build up, like you have a little community. It's like a group of people that come to your channel, and they know they could ask you questions and maybe, get you to do a video on it, or at least acknowledge it, or do a live stream, and just like, you know the deal. So as you start putting, I would say right around 1,200 subscribers, things started going really, really, like, jumped up a notch. Because all of a sudden now, people that have coral stores want you to come and hang out with them.
I've never had that.
Well, that's
not once.
Listen. Let's not put you in that category.
No one asked me to do anything. It's bullshit.
Well, you don't go to these stores, and you're very incognito, and you don't want to do this kind of stuff. When I would walk into a store, it was usually I would go in there, I would talk to them, and just like I would start a conversation. And I like to I like to bullshit. I like to bullshit with people. I'm just the kind of person, I like to talk and have a good time. So 9 times out of 10, eventually at some point, it would lead to, either I have a YouTube channel, or they would know it already, and they would start talking about that world. And then they would say, hey, I got an event coming up. You want to come down? And at one point, there was a whole bunch of us that were, getting asked to do these things. Now you take trying to run your tank, trying to balance your family life and giving them time, and then doing like the events. I remember going to Orlando to visit my brother with my wife and my son, and it was just going to be over a weekend, and 2 days out of the weekend was Reef Palooza Orlando, and I did like the morning till like 1 o'clock at the show, and then ran back and we did the family thing, which is, try to get video when your phone's blowing up and your wife is like, when are you coming home? it gets a little tough and a little, when you get to that first week of not doing YouTube. I mean, even if you take it off, it's like, whoa, this is what it's like. I don't have to worry.
Yeah, I mean, when I take my breaks, I mean, I do it pretty often, depending on how stressful I am, what's going on. Taking breaks is definitely something that I learned to do. It wasn't for the first couple years. I think what am I, my fourth year now or something like that. It was something that I was afraid to do because, like, well, if I'm not creating content, I'm not going to get paid. I'm not going to get subs and stuff. But that, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, does it really matter? I mean, we're not making millions of dollars off this stuff by all means, but I mean, if taking a break, mental health break, which I do quite often. I think I do one once every few months at this point. I'm pretty sure it's about that. And I find that it's a little bit more often now because of just everything else going on. Of course, the rest of the world is falling apart. So, and I even mentioned this to you the other day is I got off social media, man. Like, nixed that stuff, got rid of Facebook, got not on Instagram unless I'm trying to look at chicks. But I mean, I'm not fucking around with any of that stuff. Oh, friggin' around. Oh, yeah. Boop, demonetized. It's not getting paid for this video either.
Yeah, right.
I think the cousin thing probably ruined me getting demonetized. I mean,
that was done a long time.
They're not going to pay me anyways. But yeah, so I don't know what the hell I was talking about.
Your first big, I have certain memories of when we were doing it, back in the day. And don't get me wrong, I am still looking to, once my tank starts up, I'm jumping this. I've already planned it out. My whole first series is reopening the tank and what that's going to look like.
Say the word, man. I told you we can make that happen.
I know, but there's some things I want to do. I really want to get rid of my stand. I want to change my stand because my stand, I built it, and it was all that, You
need a little bit more access down there. It's pretty tight. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But
plus, I have a new protein skimmer that I want to put in the system.
Yeah.
It don't fit underneath my stand. But the one memory I had that had to be the best one was your first show.
Reefapalooza?
The first big show, and also the very first show that I met you. Because I went to the Lancaster show, and I don't remember. The only thing I don't remember about that is I know I had been watching you, and I don't know whether I talked to you before the show. But when I came there, I was actually looking for Billy. And for those of you who don't know, Billy Pipes. I was looking for Billy because it was the very first show that I met him at. And I met you first, and I was like, I remember coming up to you and saying, "Hey, Travis." And I asked you where Billy was, and you told me where he was. And then I was like, "Oh, okay." And then we spent the rest of the day just like BSing and having fun. And it was like, at one point you had said, "I came here to sell coral, and like I'm having too much fun." That was a memory, but the first Reefapalooza, where you got your first experience about, having that little C word thrown in front of your name as a celebrity, it was an eye opener.
Reefapalooza was a huge eye opening, just because not only the setup to get the Reefapalooza, and what was this, 2018 or 2019? What year are we in?
2020. We're talking 2 years ago. Yeah, 2018.
Yeah. And that was Reefapalooza, New York. Yeah. So the prep time for that was crazy. And then trying to get all the coral there, it was just really stressful.
Yeah, man.
And then meeting people for the first time, like, because, I don't go to shows very often. I don't do co-ed comp or whatever the frick it is. I don't really do too many videos with other subscribers or YouTubers or anything. So it was like one of my first times actually meeting a lot of people who watched the channel, which was really strange. It was really, really strange because, I mean, no matter what happens, I mean, sub count doesn't really, I mean, in the beginning, I will admit sub count was kind of something that I paid attention to. Now I'm just trying to create content. And if you guys like it, you like it. If you don't, then I'm going to go back to work because I mean, you can't, you do what you got to do. But it was my first time actually meeting people who really appreciated the content and came up and kind of, had conversations and stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's weird. It's weird because I remember meeting people that I, really thought highly of. It's just a weird, I guess I won't say interaction, but it's just a weird feeling, I guess. But yeah, so I really enjoyed that show. Had a great time. We did really, really well. And I think I enjoyed talking to people more than selling. So I'm glad that you were there to help out and all that kind of stuff, because I mean, I was out doing my own thing. But yeah, I mean, I can't wait until the next show. Once all this woo flu crap is done and life goes back to normal, I can't wait till we can finally get out and go to another show and meet some people and kind of have those interactions. And I mean, I'll shave my face so I don't look like a fucking grizzly bear. But
you see, that joke works with me, but it doesn't work with the chat because they don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm so furry. So furry. But it's the quarantine beard or whatever. But
well, the funniest thing about the shows is also when you go in and you never think about people that watch a channel. And the one thing, and I said it to you a lot because there was a lot of conversations we had about subscribers, and I was like, well, even at like 2,000 people that are subscribed to you, think of putting 2,000 people in a room and just how many people that is.
Yeah.
But I would go to the shows and I would go up to people that I remember watching and they knew who I was because they had seen a video. And I was like, well, how do you know my name? Well, I never talked to you before. And they were like, they
recognize your face. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They recognize you.
Know,
yeah.
except, you know, certain individuals. And you know the story with but that just that knowing that somebody had watched something that you did and had liked it, and you could still, plus the people in this hobby, they're unlike any people in the hobbies, whether you're a YouTuber or not, you can have conversations and not have any issues. You know, there are always people that'll have conversations with you and, you know, be really, really nice. And there's a lot of other behind the scenes stuff too, but you take good and bad with everything. And I kind of, at this point, I don't mind not having the bad stuff. And I know that once I get the tank, it's going to open up that can of worms again. But, you know, you got to have a thick skin to do this.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess, I don't know, YouTube in general, I look at it this way. I mean, we all do things. Well, as we're, you know, progressing through life and we're trying new things, YouTube is just something that I'm doing now. Just like it's something that you did before. It's not something I'm going to do forever. I know that this is a stepping stone for something else. I mean, maybe in 5 years, maybe I don't want to sell coral anymore. Maybe I want to do something else. I mean, I'm definitely glad that at this point, I'm definitely glad that I decided not to continue to pursue the police officer stuff, granted how everything's going now. So I know that everything happens for a reason. I'm glad that I didn't continue doing that. And the same thing with the YouTube stuff. I'm enjoying it now while it's happening, good and bad, and way things are happening, and you know all the benefits of it. But I understand that I might not do it forever.
Yeah.
I look at it as a tool to share and the only thing I don't really like is that yes, I run a business, so of course I got to talk about that. I mean, that's something, you know, if I don't talk about my business, then I don't, you know, I'm not going to make sales. And then if I don't make sales, then I can't, of course, sit down and make content because then I got to go work somewhere else. So it's kind of one of those things. But I really want to just enjoy it now while it's going, because I mean I enjoy this stuff. Like what we're doing now. We're trying something new. We're seeing if we like this live stream stuff. I will admit I'm not the biggest fan of live streams, and I mentioned that before. I'm not. I never really liked them, but I'm trying to do something else, trying to get more people involved and trying to move to a different direction. But yeah, so YouTube is a thing that I'm doing now, just like it's something that you did and you're going to continue to do, and we'll see where it goes. I mean, if it ends tomorrow, it ends tomorrow. That's one thing, is that we're all like in our own little bubbles, and I talked about this before. Each one of us lives our lives in a bubble. I guess a bubble, and that, you know, we don't really think about the things that could happen or will happen later in life that will prevent you from doing what you're doing right now. So who knows? I might drive to the grocery store tomorrow and get T-boned and then never be able to, you know, pick up a mic again. You know, things happen. So, you know, I enjoy it while it's here, and you know, and keep creating content. Enjoy the process and appreciate it. And if I don't ever do it again because I can't, then, you know, it is what it is. At least enjoy it while I have it. So. Yeah,
you gotta enjoy the moment. I mean, because like when I shut down the tank, and all of a sudden, after that first month had gone by, I missed it. I missed not doing content, and I remember sitting one day, and I was like, wow, what would I do? You know, I could do reviews or something, but I missed having the tank. And then the other thing was the very first Reefapalooza in New York that I didn't go to. I was like, wow, I was bummed. And but you come to that realization that okay, that's just your story right now, and then eventually the tank will reopen. I'll reopen the tank and start a whole new series. Plus, you still have some of my coral that I want to get from you. So this way, it was always the thing that made friendships in the hobby great, because you could always give like your coral to somebody if something bad, God forbid, happened to your tank. And when it did, when you restart, it's like you have a seed already. So the cost of getting back into it is not that great.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, I have no problem, helping you out to get that started. But yeah, I mean, you got out because you had some, some personal life issues came up, and you had to make a choice. You really had no choice. Actually, you had to walk away for a little while, knowing that you would come back eventually. And now we're in the process of making that happen. So, it's just kind of, I'm hoping within the next year you'll be back to normal. I know that you'll be working, full time for me within the next 2 years. That's for sure. We can talk about that a little bit too. So, when we expand, we're looking at so in January, as I mentioned before, we're going to be looking at some land out here in Perry County, where men are men and sheep are scared. Straight country, and I don't mind. I don't care if you call me a hillbilly. I don't care. So we're going to be getting some land, preferably enough for me to also hunt on, so I don't have to go out to public land with those monsters. So we're going to be rebuilding. So we'll have a separate building. We're going to be incorporating our own food, which you're going to be running a lot of that. So we're going to be making our own food from scratch and shipping that out. Just a glorified version of what I currently make. We'll be making different recipes and stuff that'll be good. So you'll be helping full time with that. Plus, we have the full time 3D printing that you'll be a part of, as well as fragging and all that kind of stuff. So definitely can't wait until we can finally get things going. So hopefully, what is it? It's June now. So hopefully by this time next year, the house will be completely built, and we'll be ready to start getting the process going. It's going to be a significant amount of, because we got to, it's, the image is there, the layout is there, and kind of what we want to do, but it's getting it started is going to be the issue. Getting the tanks, from custom aquariums, getting all the lighting. I mean, just the new 1000 is going to have 20 XR30s over it alone. Just coming up with the the money. The money is part of the issue, but it's getting it all together.
Sure.
So it's going to be a little bit. We're going to obviously build it, get the system going, take our time, quarantine, all that good stuff as usual. And then, then once we get our feet going, then you're going to come on full time, and then we're going to just knock this out.
Yeah, it'd be pretty crazy. Just
right
remember one thing is when that monster tank goes into your house, you get professional movers to do it, because I am not having any part of that move.
Yeah, I don't really know.
Was about it.
Yeah, I don't know what we're going to do. I mean, I know that, it's 10 foot by 4 foot by 3 foot. So we're going to have, I'm building the house in a way that we'd be able to have big open door, like I guess barn style doors opening in the middle right there. So we'd be able to pretty much forklift the tank into the basement. So it'd be interesting to see how that turns out. And then of course we have the 8 foot by 2 foot by 1 foot tanks, and then the 300 upstairs. Then we'll finally have a recording studio, so I don't have tanks and
that would be
all sorts of stuff in the background making weird noises, like So it'd be interesting to see. So I mean, you're going to come on full time. I mean, even you're planning on relocating out to hillbilly country with me.
Yeah, I like country.
Get away from that city. But and that's the thing, is these are the plans we have, and this is what I want to do. But I'm okay, and you are as well. We both grown ass adults here. We understand that if it's meant to be, it will be. Okay?
Exactly.
This is what we want. This is what we want to do. But if something comes up and prevents us from doing it, then that's the way it was meant to be. So, just focus, and if we're going to do it, we're going to do it. And if it doesn't work out, then we're supposed to do something else. So,
absolutely.
But
you gotta look at it that way. If you look at it any other way, first of all, you're going to let yourself down when it doesn't. But you'll, like you said, everything happens for a reason. So maybe at that time it didn't. What you wanted didn't come true, but it was meant for you to hold off and wait for a later date to come back. We both learned a lot of lessons like that going through the hobby, because the hobby teaches you that. Everybody, in my mind, your tank never looks like the way you picture it in your mind when you first start it. It'll never look that way because you got too many corals that will just beat the back of your head in.
Yeah.
I always thought I had a big picture in my head about how my reef was going to look, and I just found out that it don't work that way.
No. I mean, I was going to talk about this in a later video, and I still will. But when it comes to planning what you want your reef tank to look like, the best thing you can do is pick a coral, know what it's going to look like when it fully grows up. Like, what does its mama look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then place that coral where it has the best chance of growing the way that it will grow, in a way that it's not going to be negatively affecting itself or other corals around it. So that you got to run through that for every single frag that you put in your tank. You have to run that scenario. What's this coral going to look like? This little half-inch chode looking sumbitch. What is it going to look like in 2 years? Is it going to be branching, thick branches like a green slimer? Is it going to be bushy? Is it going to be little chodes everywhere? I mean, you got to know what it's going to look like, and that's something that I learned. That's back to the lessons learned. So knowing what it's going to look like, and then putting it on an appropriate rock structure that's going to support its full growth and its duration of its life. That's an issue that I had. We talked about this before with the pillars in my tank. Mm-hmm. The pillars look great when it's full. It looks beautiful. 4 months ago, the tank looked amazing with the pillars. Everything was just looked like the reef was floating, right? Now, the downside to pillars is it's the foreverness is not even close to being there. And not more so because if you have a rockscape that's more spread out and you got caves and you got branches and shit all over the place, you're less likely to shade out and kill off colonies quicker. When you have pillars, it's all or nothing. You're going to wipe stuff out underneath. There's really nothing you can do about it. And as much as the pillar looks good, I will never use the pillar escape ever again. I'm just never going to do it. And if I do, it won't be to the extent that I have now. But
see, my thing was I always wanted to have a reef that looked like the shelf on a reef that would come down off the back of the tank and be small at the top and then just come down like a pyramid onto the bottom sand. And I always thought that I would take that, like my 90 has that tower, that plastic tower. I wanted to cut that off, just leave the pipes and just put the rocks around the pipes so it covers the pipes, and just put the grill at the top of the rockscape. But then I would have to dedicate a power head just to get the detritus out from behind the rocks, and I would never fully get it out. So you got a whole bunch of issues with that. So you're prohibited about what kind of rockscape you put down.
Well, that's the thing. The detritus is one of the easiest things to take care of on my tank setup because of the bare bottom and the pillars.
Yeah.
But I have the opposite type of. I still have bare bottom in the 40 gallon, but I have more of the type of rock structure that I'm looking for on my next build. But the detritus is the buildup. The issue is a little bit more. So you just got to weigh the pros and the cons. I mean, the reality is no matter what you do, there's going to be pros and cons. You're not going to get it. There's nothing going to be perfect. All right. I mean,
and I'm
done trying to do that.
That's the funniest thing about sitting and moderating the live stream, because people will ask questions, and I'll sit out and there'll be a question about bristle worms, how people hate them because they're pests. Spaghetti worms, because people hate them because they believe they're pests. I love them. My sand bed had spaghetti worms, bristle worms running rampant because they basically were the vultures of my tank. You'd see that the whatever I fed the tank would hit the sand, and those things would go crazy.
They were crazy.
And if a fish passed away in my tank, you never saw it.
See, I don't have a problem with bristle worms. I just don't. I mean, I understand that they'll get you. You touch one, you're going to regret it. But
oh yeah,
I don't really have any because in my main display because of the wrasse. But I do see some in my refugium every once in a while. Mm-hmm. But I don't really think they're that big of an issue. I mean, they're made to clean up the detritus.
Yeah,
that's simple. That's what they do. They clean up shit off the bottom of the tank. So I don't really see a problem with that. Plus, I got a whole bunch of those little starfish from you. Remember
Yeah.
When we got your corals and when you're taking down your tank. Those little brown starfish, those things are everywhere, man.
Yeah.
Chair squeaking. But
Little crystal stars.
yeah, I mean those things are great. I mean, I even got the white ones. We got the brown ones and the white ones.
They would compete against the coral for food in my Rockscape, which would drive me up a wall. Because
like they'd actually get on the coral and take off the food.
No, what would happen is specifically like Zoas and some of the LPS that were glued into the Rockscape, I would feed it, and all of a sudden you'd see these long arms start coming up out of the rocks, and they would actually pluck food from a coral's mouth.
Oh no,
that would tick me off to no end.
I have a couple of brittle stars that are like that. Some massive brittle stars. I didn't know in surfing stars. I didn't realize I had them in this tank. But when I feed the tank, you could see their giant arms coming up, wrapping around the corals. It's funny.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And those things are old, man. Those brittle stars I had when I had the Lobo. So they're over 5 years old.
You still have the snail?
The what?
The snail that made its rounds.
What
one?
You
had it in your tank first.
Oh yeah, the big one. Yeah, the one. Yeah, I have a bunch of them. Those Mexican turbo snails are the size of baseballs in my 300.
That thing.
You don't see them because they hide underneath the rocks, like underneath the cliffs and stuff. But at night, you come down here and they're just massive, massive Mexican turbo snails. They live a long time. I mean, it's got to be at least 5 years, 4.5, 5 years. Just like that Lobo, I got it from Brian 5 years ago, just as a little snub, and that thing is just rocking. Speaking of that, I'm gonna have to set up a separate tank for that in the new place because. Yeah. He's not going into my new system because the whole.
Well, that's why I asked you if you ever considered doing LPS and Zoa tank, just to not only.
I probably will.
Because you could put that coral in there, but also it would add a new aspect to the store.
Yeah, it would be a separate. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I plan on having people come and shop out of the new store too at some point. But yeah, I can't put any LPS in my new system. It would have to spend 6 months in quarantine just to verify that it doesn't have any verminted snails, because that's how I got them from that coral. Even though it was in quarantine for 30 days, I still saw the verminted snails, and then that just it pisses me off. So
you don't really get the total idea of how big that coral is on video. If you see that in person, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's massive. It's
got it back.
I mean, it's bigger than a basketball.
Yeah,
a lot bigger than a basketball. It's insane. Yeah. So, but so I guess we'll do a few more minutes, and then we're gonna wrap this up. And we are over an hour. I mean, we've been talking shit for
wow.
Yeah. So we'll figure out what we want to do. I got a couple more guests. I know that probably bring Mike Lemming on. Then there's a couple other subscribers that want to come on and do some stuff. I'll see what direction I want to go with these. And
you're gonna reach out to people and see if you can do collabs with other, like maybe like BRS kind of people. And
no, I'm not interested in that. I'm just
gonna go with like people that are in the
just hobby. If people want to come on and talk, this is kind of like a hangout session and kind of chill out. It's not really. I mean, it's share what you got going on, talk, and we can just bullshit and have a good time. We'll see how it goes. I'm okay with it. I mean, either way. I mean, this is like I said. I'm willing to try new things, see how they work out, and we'll go from there. So I think we can wrap it up from there. I'm trying to read through the comment section.
Well, Andrea loves this.
Andrea loves everything. She's such a.
I miss being joking around with Andrea in the chat because it's funny. Trying to talk it up, you really don't pay attention to the chat, which is kind of hard.
Me or you guys?
Me.
Oh
no, I'm doing this. I'm talking to you right now, and I tried to keep an eye on the chat, but I missed so much of it that I couldn't even ask it. So if anybody else, I missed it. Sorry.
It's oh man, yawn over here. It's not a live Q&A, so there's not a lot of stuff going through the chat, which is pretty good.
He has severe acne. Oh, why isn't Travis on cam? He has severe
it's actually not the acne. What happens is because my dick is so long, I have to put it over my shoulders. So what happens is it sits right next to my neck, and you guys will see that on camera. Then I'll get flagged for inappropriate content. So on the
any minute you're going to see the chat change, and it's going to be Andrea saying first dick joke check.
And usually I just let it sit on the floor, but I just don't want to step on. I got these new wheels on this freaking chair.
You think the chair squeaks because you move?
You think the
around
chair
in it.
squeaks now? You should hear me cry when I accidentally roll over my dick. That's why I'm not on camera, just in case you were wondering.
Mm-hmm. Another note to people who want to have a YouTube channel: expect people say the craziest shit to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we're good. I think we're good for now.
Yeah, I enjoyed this.
Yeah, if you guys like the video or the live stream, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, go fuck yourself. I don't care. I think that's it. We got 2 dislikes. If you're still I will find you.
2 thumbs down.
Yeah, it's okay. I don't worry about it. But yeah, so that's it, guys. I will need a bathroom break because he's full of it. Bet your ass. Oh, bet your ass mostly Reef. Let me click on this guy. Where's he at? Yeah. I can't click on it. Some bitch. It doesn't let me.
They changed it. You can't do it anymore.
No, where's mostly Reefs? Is everyone look at this guy's profile once it pops up? Here we go. Look at this guy. Look at him. He reminds me of that guy, that British guy, who the comedian where he tries to be funny. He was playing in the hell is he's got that weird ass accent. Look at his face. That's somebody you'd find on Plenty of Fish. Yo, man, you want to come over and check on my gun? I gotta hold this Glock next to my dick because it's so small. Oh man, look at these. He reminds me of Randy from Trailer Park Boys, but with a hairier chest.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's funny.
Oh, okay. All right, enough of that. I think we're good. We're gonna go off on the deep end. We ain't gonna try to do anything, but all right. So that's it for this live stream. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed. If you didn't, okay, I'll leave it at that then. That's it. Peace.